Well, let's start. Love being back to this group. Grateful for this group. It gives me the opportunity to practice and explore my presentations. And I took a break because I just wanted to absorb the comments I got last year. And it was so gratifying, the discussions we have. So I will be giving this presentation, which will be about 15 minutes, but it's really the discussion that is the most meaningful for me. And what I'd like to ask everyone to do during the presentation is just take a breath and be open. Don't try and process very much what I'm saying in the beginning. Like, what does he mean by that? Or I don't know if I agree with that. Let me sort of guide you through it. Because being open, I think, is a very, very hard skill for me and most people. And I know there is a lot going on in the world right now. It is an interesting time. So, right now, let's just sort of come together, relax, be open, and we're going to be doing a lot of sharing. So, I'm going to ask you tonight to make a hero's commitment. I am a hero who's using my freedom to help. And my job is to show why is it valuable to make this hero's commitment. First, let's look at the definition of a hero. We hear this term every day, all the time. We see movie posters of heroes, we read books about heroes, the news talks about heroes. Hero, 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 hero. But what does it mean to be a hero? If you ask a lot of people, there are many definitions. I'll give you my definition, but again, let me take you through the presentation so you understand why I'm defining a hero this way. A hero is an individual who is using their freedom to help. Now, if you look at the definition of hero from the dictionary, it gives you something very different from my definition. And over the years doing this talk and thinking about it, going back and reading the dictionary definition of hero, it's almost comical to me because it's rather simple and all over the map and online. But if someone said to you, okay, what is a hero? Let's look at the dictionary. It would tell you a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength, a illustrious warrior, a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage, the principal character in a literary or dramatic work, the central figure in an event, period, or movement. So here are the definitions. They don't necessarily connect together, and I spent a lot of time going, what is the underlying sort of connecting theme to all these qualities? So I started working on that and looking at hundreds of other people's definitions of heroes. A hero is someone who freely imagines and freely chooses to risk or sacrifice their life to help others, um, such as their family, friends, fellow soldiers, a community, a people, a nation, humanity, nature, etc. So I'm really adding the concept of freedom to this the more I thought about it. Because before you go into that burning building where you hear a child crying, you have to imagine freely running into that building. You have to freely imagine that in your mind. You might imagine not running into the building. So you're doing something where you're thinking to yourself, maybe I should help. And then the second step is you have to choose to do it. You can freely imagine running in the building and decide, I don't want to do it. So this is how you're exercising your freedom as a hero. And we'll get more into why that's important. And so you're risking or sacrificing your life to help others, such as family, friends, fellow soldiers. We understand that heroes are risking or sacrificing their life. There's not a lot of debate that that is a quality of being a hero. But what I think is really important in my presentation is to show you it's not the only way of being a hero. It's a way of being a hero. A hero is a main character of a story. So think of the countless stories we hear, and not everyone's risking or sacrificing their life to be a hero. Excuse me. But a hero is freely imagining and freely choosing to help themselves or others to overcome adversity. This is the character or story arc. You're taking on some kind of adversity. But again, I'll challenge you when you start to look at these stories again, there's always like the wrestling, the interior wrestling of the hero. Should I do this? Do I have the courage? They have to sort of imagine doing something heroically. And they have free will to do that. They have free will to decide not to do it. The difference between a hero and a coward. And then they have to choose to do that. You know, there's always that moment in the story where they summon the courage and they face the adversity. So again, what I'm adding into this talk is this idea of how freedom plays a role in being a hero. Of course, a classic definition of a hero, Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Now, in the hero's journey, there's a call to adventure, and Joseph Campbell would say, you can refuse the call. You can just say, I'm not going on the adventure, but you're freely choosing to go on this adventure. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. You've won your magic ring, or your elixir, or your sword. And then the hero comes back from this mysterious adventure, and the return involves freedom. Because a lot of people go, I've got my treasure. I don't want to go back. They will laugh at me. They won't understand me. So that's another free choice to return from your mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. And again, you're trying to help. You're a hero who's made free choices. You have your treasure. You're freely returning to help people. All the elements of what I think a hero is. Maya Angelou has one of my favorite definitions. I think a hero is any person really intent on making this a better place for all people. Again, intention is a free choice. Making a better place is to help people. And again, you don't have to be a superhero. Parents can be a hero. I took this quote from someone online. My parents are my heroes, and I hope yours are too. And another quote from someone who had a great quote. She is forever my hero. She's talking about her friend who donated an organ to her. She's forever my hero and the type of person I aspire to become. She is saving my life, and I am forever grateful. Heroes can be family, they can be friends. Of course, the master of superheroes, Stan Lee. Another definition of a hero is someone who's concerned about other people's well-being and will go out of his or her way to help them. Even if there's no chance of a reward, that person who helps others simply because it should or must be done and because it is the right thing to do, is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero. Anyone can be a superhero. Martha Beck says, tell yourself a life story in which you, the hero, are primarily a problem solver rather than a helpless victim. So what she's saying is the opposite of a helpless victim is a helpful hero. There are hundreds of these definitions. I'll wrap the definitions up with, of course, one of my favorite authors, J.R.R. Tolkien. These are very powerful quotes from him. I have found that it is the small, everyday deed of ordinary folks that keep the darkness at bay, small acts of kindness and love. And that's so powerful to me. It's the day-to-day things that we do for each other. And I was very surprised when I read this passage from a letter he wrote because Lord of the Rings was filled with epic characters and kings and wizards and dark lords. But who did Tolkien really think the main hero was of the story? I don't think a lot of people really know this. I think the simple rustic love of Sam and his Rosie is absolutely essential to the study of the chief hero's character, and to the theme, the relation of ordinary life, breathing, eating, working, begetting, and quests, sacrifice, causes, and the longing for elves and sheer beauty. Sam was his main hero. He was sort of salt of the earth. He sort of saved the day. And that ties into the quote above. It's those little things, the common everyday people, although not everyone I want to think is common or everyday. But the point is, these are the heroes that really are moving things forward. And the last Tolkien quote is, I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what we do with the time that is given to us. And I have certainly thought a lot about that recently. We live in very interesting times. But why this quote sticks out to me, it's a decision. You're free to decide. You're using your freedom to decide what to do with your time. So this is why I believe that common theme, the common thread, is a hero is an individual who's using their freedom to help. It took me many, many years to sort of distill this idea of using the concepts of being a hero and freedom and helping and putting it together. So if you are an individual who's using your freedom to help, you can consider yourself to be a hero. And this is why I'm asking you to make a hero's commitment that says, I am a hero who's using my freedom to help. So let's talk about the hero archetype. I've given this talk enough times where there are a lot of people in complete alignment with what I'm saying. And then there's still a group that is very resistant to considering themselves to be a hero. And I understand they feel it's too egocentric or too arrogant, or they haven't done enough in their life to be considered a hero. The hero archetype is very important to consider. An archetype is a character, image, pattern that is repeated over and over throughout history in our stories, fairy tales, and myths. I got the idea of archetypes by reading Carl Jung. And if you just starting with Carl Jung, I would recommend reading Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. It's semi-autobiographical, but it's a great starter because Jung has a lot out there. So throughout our lives, we constantly hear, read, see, and participate in hero stories. Think about it. You go outside, you can't help seeing a movie poster or hearing an advertisement or seeing video games in stores. We are surrounded by hero stories. The constant appearance of a hero makes it an archetype and indicates there's something valuable psychologically, culturally, and mythologically important about being a hero. A community, a collective, a culture believes hero stories are valuable because they can help you learn how to survive, overcome adversity, and expand your loving of being alive. So there's a value of why we're constantly hearing hero stories. Some of the hero stories have been passed on from generation to generation, or some of the hero stories are new, but they usually contain the same archetypes. It's not just hero. It could be the old man, or the helpful animal, or the journey, or the treasure, or the sword, or the mountain, the dragon. These are all archetypes we hear over and over again. Over time, because of hearing, reading, seeing, and participating with so many hero stories, the psyche became conditioned and developed a memory and a psychological structure around the value of being a hero. And this was fascinating to me as I read Jung. So think of over time where the body is developing ways to resist a disease or infection or heal a wound. Over thousands of years, the body retains a memory of this is how I heal a cut. Well, what Jung was saying is over time, the psyche develops a memory of how valuable it is to being a hero. So hero stories and role models resonate with your psyche because it's imprinted in your memory and unconscious to be attracted to them because they are valuable and can provide guidance. This is psychological resonance is why hero stories and role model heroes are so attractive, popular, entertaining, inspiring, and uplifting. What do people say? What do we do for fun? What you're really saying is, let's go to a hero story. There's a new hero story out. I want to go to hero stories. Like it's potato chips to us. We constantly want to hear hero stories. That's because our psyche resonates with hero stories. What's fascinating, again, reading Jung is your psyche wants you to be a hero because it can help you learn how to survive, overcome adversity, and expand your loving of being alive. So it's not even a choice. Your psyche is saying, I need you to be a hero. This will help your survival. You can overcome adversity. You'll be happier. You need to be a hero. So not considering yourself to be a hero and behaving like a hero blocks your psychic energy and creates psychological disruption. Again, fascinating to me. If you're like, well, being a hero is too inflated, your psyche doesn't like that. It wants you to be a hero. Your challenge is figuring out what's an acceptable hero to you? You're not flying through the air. Yes, that's a very inflated hero, but saying, well, I'm a loser and I'm not a hero, that's not good either. There's some sort of sweet spot that you need to imagine yourself to be a hero. So this is why I'm saying, why is it valuable to make this hero's commitment? I am a hero who's using my freedom to help. Making this hero's commitment will help you to consider yourself to be a hero, create an image of yourself as a hero, and behave like a hero. That little phrase, this commitment, is aligning. It helps you align with your psyche. This will align you with your psychic energy and it is psychologically healthy. And then you'll find, as I have, this is very energizing and uplifting. It gives you meaning and purpose. It increases your helping. If you're saying to yourself, I'm a hero who's using my freedom to help, you start consciously helping more, which is very validating and rewarding. It helps you face adversity. Classic, the hero is constantly facing adversity. And by saying you have freedom, you're empowered. You have agency. You can do something about it. It also aligns us with the movement of freedom within our culture and nation. And I want to talk a little bit more about this before I wrap up. Why I've added the concept of freedom in my definition of being a hero is because I've thought for a long time that we value freedom in our culture and nation. Liberty, freedom, I'm free to do this. This concept of freedom is so important to us. And when you talk about being a hero and helping others, for some, it's like, sure, I love to do that. That's extra credit. That's extracurricular. But my main goal is to be free. But here's what's happening. Freedom is not just about obtaining and having freedom. It's how we use our freedom. Like we have to start having that conversation. Freedom for freedom's sake will destroy the planet, will put us in debt. Look where we are now. We're not happy. And I'm not saying everyone has freedom now. There's many people struggling to have freedom. But we have to add to the conversation, what are we doing with our freedom? So this idea of being a hero and using your freedom aligns us with the movement of freedom, helps us take the next step. There are many other valuable aspects to it, but I'm going to end with this one. You become conscious of all the individuals helping around you, and you realize your world is filled with heroes. It was shocking to me where I just did an exercise where I looked at people a different way, like, oh no, they're just not annoying on their phone, they don't care. But really, what were they talking about on the phone? They were trying to help their friend who had, problems with a boyfriend, or they were trying to help their kids. And you realize everyone's trying to help each other. That's how you make money. You don't get paid unless you're helping someone. How do I help you? May I help you? I notice the word helping constantly. And that really builds a sense of trust and hope when you realize you're surrounded by heroes who are using their freedom to help. So I'm going to end by challenging everyone to make this hero's commitment. Try it for a week. Just try it for a week. And again, from the talks, I got some interesting feedback where people were still resistant, going, well, I can't consider myself to be a hero. And it was funny because I was thinking about it for a while. No one's going to come up to you and go, hey, are you a hero by any chance? And then you feel really awkward. You feel, oh, no, no. Like, no one's going to do that. So don't live in fear that if you think of yourself as a hero, that you're going to have to explain that to someone and look inflated. Think of it as like you're a secret agent. You're on a mysterious mission. I'm a hero who's using my freedom. That's what you do. I say this to myself throughout the day, but it's very matter of fact. I use it as alignment, as an archetypal exercise of it just makes me feel better. It gives me purpose and direction. So we're going to wind up the talk. I want our discussion to happen, and I really deeply appreciate the opportunity to share this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. All right, folks, now starts the main part, which is the conversation. So if you'd like to, so David, do you want to ask anything? You want to give a first prompt?
The
About
first prompt is I just want unvarnished reaction, feedback, what people like, didn't, what they're just I can take it, just go with the flow. Let's just start our conversation.
wonderful. If you'd like to do that, and we invite you to do that, please go ahead and raise your hand in Zoom or type an exclamation mark in chat. We're going to start with Sanjay. Sanjay, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Bloom and Scott, I absolutely loved this presentation, and I loved Carl Jung actually mentioned a portion of his work in my doctorate, which I just earned the other day. I was defending my capstone project, and I just loved it, and I could identify with this idea of the hero's journey. I know Tony Robbins, Joseph Campbell's, and many other people talk about uh, this hero's journey. It gives me encouragement because I'm traveling overseas. I'm literally starting my life all over again at 49. And I know that it's the right thing to do at this time in my life, like this juncture. I'm writing the next chapter of my life. And what this gives me, like Mr. Bloom or David, I guess, Shrikant, you mentioned, I just, I felt that encouragement, that idea of knowing that I can live by my inner convictions to make a difference at this point. I also believe that a lot of people go into our success known and unknown. And I was just coming from a 2 hour seminar just a moment ago, and we were talking about operating in faith. You know, I'm heading overseas in May. I actually have all my stuff in storage. I'm in Virginia right now, Virginia, USA, and I'm going to Italy in May, and it would be nice to move there. And I've been traveling around and praying and operating in faith. I'm giving up some work. I got to find new employment. I'm going to work on speaking, writing, moving into the entertainment industry, new language, new culture, new visa. And so there's excitement, there's an exhilaration, and I'm confident I can make a bigger difference, get involved in charity work also and cultural projects. And seeing this presentation, it just gives me that excitement of moving forward, even when you don't have everything figured out. And I'm excited that I can take my doctorate, my education, my years of living in the United States and in other countries, and then serve a greater purpose at this next juncture in my life. So I want to thank you.
Yeah. Um, so it's interesting what's going on sort of worldwide and with the economy. You hear the word uncertainty all the time. And so what you're describing is living in uncertainty. And the entire culture globally is moving into a very uncertain time. So the first thing I want to say is you are not alone. You are not alone. Because I know it can be very scary, like we all got the memo in the morning. What's wrong with me? Shouldn't it be more stable? And what you're saying is people are going to need you as a role model because just how you're describing, I'm taking on these challenges, I'm trying to find an inner compass. Don't take for granted that people are used to doing that. And so what you're doing is heroic. You're helping people just by being you. I know that sounds very cliche, we are the world, but tremendous uncertainty. And that's sort of why I give this talk because it's like this puts you on a heroic pathway and aligns you with your own psyche. That's my point. Like when we're looking for direction, and as you know, Jung talks about this a lot, there are inner forces within ourselves that can guide us if we pay attention to it. And it's only the hero's journey and breakdown only happen during tremendous moments of uncertainty. When we're certain, we feel like we don't need it. So what you're describing, it's like a metaphor for where the entire world's going. And I think it's very exciting. And I think your perspective serves as a role model for others.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate it. And, I'm operating in faith. I've taken the steps and I've been praying, and my house is listed. I'm praying to meet with realtors in Rome and Milan, Italy. And then I would return to Virginia and work on my visa and then have everything shipped over, hopefully purchase the property and then work on my new career, setting up my new career. There is a lot of uncertainty. I'm becoming comfortable in the uncertainty because I'm taking action in that uncertainty. And I'm confident things are going to continue getting better because I love what you said. When everything's certain, people feel a little more relaxed. Yeah, that's very true, right? They're complacent in some ways.
Very exciting.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank
much,
you very much, Sanjay.
and David. Thank
Thank you. Next up is Evanique. Folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom to comment. We'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. I think what really struck me is the different definitions of a hero. And what you said is, you know, one of the things that struck me is your helping self or others overcome adversity. And I would say helping self and others overcome adversity, just because I think when you're helping another person overcome adversity, you're helping yourself. You're working with them to figure it out. And I like that too, because like you said, that person could be a friend um, that you're helping out, and then you're helping them overcome adversity, and you're also helping yourself learn how to overcome a particular adversity. I think too, when we look at a hero, we think of it as this big thing, and it is, like you said before, it's a freedom, and it's a freedom um to help someone or to not help someone. Like you always get a choice, and I think once you make that choice of helping someone, that's when you become the hero. So it's not always going into a burning building and saving somebody like a firefighter. And I admire firefighters greatly. Um, but it's also when you choose to, donate to a food bank. It's also when you choose to, um, you know, help someone find housing. It's also when you give someone an encouraging word, when you stick beside them through a tough moment in life that we all face, certainty, like, you know, someone's having surgeries, someone is sick in a hospital, and you're sitting with them. Like all of those things make you a hero. And, people were talking about uncertainty. Yeah, like yes, it seems like it's a lot of uncertainty at this time, but life is uncertain. That's the nature of life. Things come unexpectedly and you have to deal with that. And you can help yourself, when uncertainty comes, but you can also help other people when uncertainty comes in their life. So I think all of those ways of being a hero is great, and it does make you feel like you're doing something important. And a lot of people think some of the things I mentioned are small, but to the person that you're helping, it's huge. Like it's life changing. So I thought it was a great presentation.
Yeah, I so appreciate. I think you're emphasizing what I'm trying to emphasize, which is being a hero can take on many definitions. And when we go to our theaters or play our games, it's pretty much a very inflated definition of being a hero, flying through the air or a magic sword, which is fine on one level. But I don't want people to think that unless I'm doing something grand, I'm not a hero. And what you're emphasizing is what I'm trying to emphasize is there are many types of heroic acts. To my daughter, I might think, hey, what I'm doing is whatever, but I'm being a hero to her. And so it's important to consider yourself to be a hero. That's what Jung was talking about in the hero archetype. It psychologically energizes to do it. The challenge, the trick is finding the definition that works for you. You might just say, "Oh yeah, that's way too grand, not me." But don't not consider yourself a hero because that's just as unhealthy because we're psychologically programmed over thousands of years where our psyche wants us to feel heroic. That's gives us the energy to get through adversity. So that's why I put out that hero's commitment just as a starting point to sort of center and align you. It may or may not work. You might have your own definition, but at least it's helping you with a starting point of you are a hero, and it's healthy to consider yourself to be a hero.
Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. Folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. There are some questions in the chat, so I'm going to go to them next. But raise your hand anytime you want, or type an exclamation mark. B asks, "Thank you for your presentation. Just curious, how do we know that our psyche demands," that is a reference to Jung, "that we declare ourselves heroes, while simultaneously we are very resistant to call ourselves heroes?"
So that is the question. That's a fascinating question. And you're going to have to go on the journey studying Jung like I have over the years to find the answer to that. I really challenge you because that, to me, I was in a very uncertain place. And I've done talks about Marie Louise von Franz, his disciple. And I didn't really know any of this. And so what I'm sharing with you is after many years of study. So I don't think it would be doing it justice to say, how do we know the psyche demands that? I would challenge you to go into Jung to try and find that answer yourself and not just take it, on faith that I'm saying it. I think that is the answer, but I don't want to short circuit that by David explain that to you. It's an amazing journey to learn that, but it sort of makes sense because we hear the word hero all the time in hero stories. So the question is, why do we keep hearing that? Why is that so important? Why do these same archetypal characters, the old man, the princess, the dragon, why do they keep coming up in story after story? It's fascinating, the structure of our psyche. Like it's structured around certain types of characters and stories to give it energy and healing. So I would challenge you to go on that journey with that question, and it will be a great journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great question, B. Now, Michelle had a comment saying that the little things count. It is only our perspective of what hero really is. Would you like to comment on that, David? And Michelle, would you like to elaborate a little bit? You're
Yeah.
welcome to do that.
Um, well, I think the other lady said it really, just helping somebody, you could be considered a hero. I mean, in a positive way, of course. Doing something for somebody, like let's say somebody with a disability and you help them wheel them up a ramp or something, you could be a hero that way. So it could be the little things in life that make you a hero. It's not just the big things. And that's about it.
Absolutely. Like I said, when I made my hero's commitment, uh, I just do it sort of naturally. It helps align me. Um, I don't focus so much on like I'm a hero or my freedom. I focus more on how I'm helping. Now, I've connected the concept of being a hero because there's an archetypal energy to that. I talk about freedom because that sort of connects me to this idea of what are we using freedom for? And that's energizing to me. But most of it is how am I helping? And a lot of it is how I'm helping myself. I'd say 90% of the helping is helping myself. And you can be a hero to yourself. It's probably the biggest contribution you can do is being a hero to yourself. So yeah, it's constantly just living a lifestyle of helping. And it gets you through, especially times like now, which is very uncertain, where you're like, I just need to focus on my hero's journey and how I'm helping people.
Wonderful. So I'm going to have some follow-up questions, but priority is always to people who have not spoken. So if you're not spoken, just raise your hand or type an exclamation mark in chat, and we'll go to you next. So first question, B, did your question get answered? Would you like to ask a follow-up question or a related question?
Um, yes, I kind of have a follow-up question. Um, as it relates to villains. I watched this video of this podcast by Chris Williams, and he said that the heroes and the villains always have the same backstory, which is pain. The difference is what they choose to do with it. The villain says, "The world hurt me, I'll hurt it back." And the hero says, "The world hurt me, I will not let anybody else get hurt." And heroes use their pain to help other people while villains are consumed by it and they want to watch the world burn. Do you think that that relates to why, like, there's this perseveration, like you were mentioning, that people have throughout history, have all these hero stories because life is very painful, and a way to deal with the pain and help each other survive is to, like, have a community with others, and that will help you along the journey, basically.
I love that because you're really emphasizing this idea of using freedom and making a free choice. So we all have painful experiences. So you have the freedom to decide what you do with that. You can be a victim, you can be a hero, and so you're emphasizing how free choice really reflects what a hero does. And you're emphasizing that because when I started giving these talks, I didn't talk so much about that freedom and freely choosing element, but you're giving me feedback that that is very important. You have a choice in your life what you're going to do with that pain. You have a choice. That's up to you. And you having the freedom to choose and choosing to help others makes you a hero. Does that help with your question?
Yeah, yeah, I think it does. Um, thank you so much.
B, let me make a follow-up comment. I really like your comment because I think that kind of goes to the heart of what this issue is. I mean, there is pain, there is death, there is negative things in life. And when somebody is faced with that, or let's say a challenge, a difficulty, and somebody is faced with that, what you're saying, I think the observation is just fantastic because what it's saying is that you really have two choices. You can either kind of say, because there is death, I'm going to inflict death on others. Or you can actually die yourself. You can be afraid of it. And you can say, okay, I'm going to just pull back. I'm not going to do anything. Whereas the hero's action is exactly in the opposite direction. It is all about creating life out of death, of saying, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen to other people? So, How does it, how can we learn from this? How can we solve this problem in a way where we come out of it with life which is exactly opposite of the problem? So um, the villain is the transmitter of death. It takes death and transmits it, whereas the hero takes the death upon himself. Actually, he will pay the price in order to create life. So thank you so much. Just great point. Hugo.
Yeah, thank you very much for this great presentation. There was a slide where I don't remember exactly the wordings, but I think it goes along the lines that don't be a hero, but believe that you're a hero. Can you please like clarify, like help me understand like the meaning behind that quote?
So I think basically, I'm trying to remember which slide it was. The concept is that if you don't consider yourself to be a hero, your psyche almost rebels against that. It creates disruption. Like, what's wrong with you, Hugo? You are a hero. I need you to be a hero. We need to get through the day. We need to deal with adversity. I want to feel like I'm a hero's journey. Well, I think being it's too ego. It creates tremendous disruption. And so when you say to yourself, okay, I am a hero, in sort of a neutral way, you're not trying to be impressive, but you're also not trying to negate that what you're trying to do is heroic. That's why I say you have to experiment. And what I do is going, yeah, I've made a hero's commitment. I'm using my freedom. I'm helping. I mostly focus on the helping. That satisfies my psyche. Because what I was learning from Jung is that these archetypes, the reason they pop up over and over again is because they're psychologically valuable. And if you ignore that, your psyche becomes very disrupted. So by aligning with that sort of ego image of being a hero, however you want to define it, it creates a psychic flow that's very energizing. Is that helpful?
It does, yeah. Thank you so much for clarifying. So basically, if I understood the point is to avoid the conflict is defining, like starting with the definition of the hero, what like the hero is uh for oneself, to avoid like falling into the trap of that like conflict between and I'm trying to put the right words here, like the psyche and the me, or the self is
It's
it.
it's your it's aligning your ego image with your psyche. So
Mhm.
when Jung talks about ego is very neutral. A lot of times people are, oh, you have ego. Oh, that's so egotistical. Well, you have to have an ego. You have to have an image of yourself or you'll go crazy. So ego is not a bad thing. How we imagine our ego is where we get into trouble. We're too inflated or we're too depressed, but we need an ego image of ourselves. And so we need to form an ego image of being a hero. Again, any way you want to describe that, then your psyche is like it's almost like guiding you, going, no, Hugo, no, 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 no. Yes, 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 yes. It's very interesting experiment to do to yourself to figure out you will feel your psyche giving you feedback going, this feels right.
Got it.
Thank,
Thank you so much, Mr. Bloom.
thank you, Hugo. Next up is Katie, followed by Evanik. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed the presentation you're fleshing out, like the internal process where you're thinking about coming about whether to do a heroic act. And my question for you is, Do you have to give up something to be a hero? Because Shrikant was talking about possibly giving up your life. I would give examples of giving up time and money, but do you have to give up something to be a hero?
That's a great question. A lot of the traditional definition of being a hero is involving sacrifice. Like you've made some kind of sacrifice and that makes you heroic. I personally don't like that. I don't really like the word sacrifice. What we think is a sacrifice might be a gift, basically. For example, you could say, and I can speak with about this because of my 8-year-old daughter, it's a sacrifice of all my time to take care of her, and it can be very frustrating. And and even though I'm a hero to her for taking care of her, I don't want to do some of the mundane stuff or the frustrating stuff. But I don't use the word sacrifice. I go, it's a challenge to me. It's a challenge to me, when I want her to go to bed and I'm so tired, and I'm sacrificing my sleep. So it depends on how you define sacrifice. You can use that word, but I think to answer your question, you don't have to sacrifice to be heroic. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great questions.
Thank you.
And
Next up, go ahead.
could I add something?
Please go ahead.
And I just wanted to say that also something ethical, the foundation, the person might sacrifice if the person is classified as a hero or however he or she determines himself or herself, or others might deem their actions. I think there needs to be an ethical basis that might be the reason that they're entering into the conflict. They take it upon themselves, and then they see, okay, I can resolve this ethical situation. And like this actually relates to your point, Shrikant, about what you said about problem solving. When you were talking about, you were building on this idea of the hero and the villain that was brought up. Who was it that brought that up? Who is she?
It was a quote about
Yeah,
being a helpless victim or being a
yeah.
helpful hero. Yeah.
Yes, so sometimes, like, I think to resolve a situation, you might take it upon yourself because you have the skills, or you're grateful. You're like, I think I can do this to help it along. And no one would ask you to do it, maybe, but I think if you're equipped to do it, or even if you don't have everything figured out and you're willing to go on that journey, like you and David were talking about, I think that's where it could, there's an ethical basis. It's not an illegitimate, unethical, or some sort of opportunity where you're trying to take advantage of someone. I think that is something else to keep in mind, that hero is already equipped internally and going in, and then will develop skills also as they go along.
Yeah, so two great points you're emphasizing. It's this idea of helping to me is sort of aligned with ethical. Like your intention is to help. So you need an ethical basis. Like if you're not helping anyone, you're really not a hero to anyone. You're just like, no one's going to write a hero story and you didn't help anyone. It's, so the ethicalness is they helped us in some way, or their intention was to help. So that's a great point of if you don't, and it's what Stan Lee in his quote said, if you don't have the intention to help, or the ethical viewpoint of being positive and making a contribution, then that's not really heroic. That's, it is what it is, but that's not heroic. And the other thing that you guys are emphasizing is this idea of sacrifice. I'm not saying a hero can't sacrifice. When we think of heroes, we think like, oh, they sacrifice their life or they risk their life. And that is a very legitimate definition of being a hero. The challenge is when people go, if I haven't sacrificed, then I'm not good enough to be considered a hero. And that's wrong. That's wrong to me. If you want to sacrifice and risk your life, absolutely heroic. But don't think you're not heroic if you're not doing those things. It's your ethical intention to help. That's good enough to be a hero. You don't have to like get burned alive in a building necessarily. Does that make sense? Great.
Thank you. Next up is Evanique.
Yeah, I just one thing when you said ego is the image of self, I think that's a good point because I think we always associate egos with as being a bad thing. Um, you know, is ego like, their ego's so big. And I think, creating that, and you could create the image of yourself that you want yourself to be. And then you can have the confidence to step into it. I think people are afraid of ego because they're afraid of being the best person they can be. They want that image, but they just think they're too small to get to that image, and you're not. And it's nothing wrong with saying, I'm striving to be the person I want to be. You know, if the ego is an image of yourself, who gets to create the image? It's you. So I think a heroic action is stepping into who you are. So I just wanted to that's what I wanted to say. But I did, as I was listening, I heard, you talk about the sacrifice being a gift. And I never thought of it that way. We always think of sacrifice as something painful, you know, something that you give up, something that has to hurt. And I think your example of taking care of your 8-year-old, like, it's a sacrifice because sometimes 8-year-olds are 8-year-olds, and you know, you have to fight through, like, you have to be the adult in the situation. You can't, but you're also remembering that you're teaching her how to be, you know, and and then remembering that she is 8 and she's not fully developed yet. And I think the gift is that you get to give her a chance to be, you know, first of all, you get to take care of her. That's a gift. You get to raise this girl to be a contributing member of society, and you give her the freedom to choose who she gets to be. I think that's a gift, and you're right. It is a sacrifice, but again, it's not. Like, yeah, I think if you look at the sacrifice, I think if we looked at life like that, like, I'm going to sacrifice this so that I can get here. Like, you're going to sacrifice the freedom that you had before you had kids in order to raise a great human being. In order to get the chance to raise a great human being. You know, I'm going to help somebody else. Yes, I could be doing something else with my time, but my time is better spent helping someone else. So I just thought that was good. That's all.
Well, I'd love to build on the two things you mentioned because I think they're related. I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much power and freedom they have to create their ego image. It is, I think most people go through life and they just sort of developed an ego image when they were very young and they've just sort of kept it. Like, I'm going to be a rocket scientist or, I'm going to be whatever. And that image was formed because they read a book or they saw a movie or a friend told them something. This is who I am, basically. And what people don't realize is that could be a trap where you're trapped in this ego image. Like, all my life, I thought I would be this, but that's really not what you like anymore or who you are. But because you've thought of yourself, it forms almost a biochemical neural pathway. Like, you wake up each day going, this is who I am. So your brain's used to that. So it's very hard for people to go, well, but that's not who I am. It's scary and most people don't do that. But you have the freedom, and that is probably the ultimate heroic act which Jung and Campbell are talking about. It takes a hero, and combining what you said, to sacrifice your old ego image. That's a sacrifice. That needs to almost die, you know? to be reborn. So when you're talking about me and my 8-year-old, I'm sitting there going, I want to sleep. I can't stand this anymore. Why won't you go to bed? I'm sacrificing my sanity. It's all a definition of who I think I should be. I should be in bed. I shouldn't have to deal with this tantrum. But what really happens is if I sacrifice that old image, well, hang in there. And after she goes crazy, and you want to go to bed, when you see her sleeping, it's the most powerful, loving experience of your life. So that was worth hanging in there. If I kept thinking to myself, well, I'm sacrificing my free time, I could be, reading a book. You go through that ego image of what I should be. But by hanging in there and seeing her asleep, that is the most powerful, loving experience. I would get nowhere anywhere else. And so what I'm sacrificing is that old ego image of, yeah, maybe you're not reading a book, but this is bringing you more happiness. So you see how those are connected?
Thank you. Great question. Great comment.
I think,
Sorry, I think there was a issue. Can you hear me? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Next up is Kathy.
Hi, so thank you for this presentation, David. And I love the challenge of living. I'm a hero who is using my freedom to help for a week. And I really like that it aligns with who we are, who we've been for lifetimes after lifetimes. It brings us back to the center of ourselves. So I love this. And I think if we reflected even on today, we've probably done heroic things. I know, thinking about my day, I've done a couple of heroic things just today. So if we really looked at our lives, I'm sure we see ourselves, wow, that was really heroic. It's just, can we accept that? Can we love ourselves enough to say, that was heroic?
And that's a great challenge for people because in giving this talk, I think theoretically people understand what I'm talking about. It's putting into the practice that all sorts of validation issues come up. Like, okay, challenge yourself to be a hero. That was heroic. And then there's a tremendous psychological backlash of you don't deserve to be a hero. You don't deserve to be yourself. You don't deserve to be happy. And that is a heroic challenge in itself to understand, well, where are those voices coming from? Is that from childhood? Was that from trauma? When I talk to people, tremendous validation issues. And I think that's where a lot of the resistance comes from. A lot of the resistance is, I don't deserve, okay, yeah, I'm not a firefighter or a soldier. And I understand what you're saying, just helpful day-to-day stuff. But I got to be honest with you. I don't deserve to think of myself as a hero. That is so prevalent. That's such a challenge with people. That is the work because your own psyche is saying, well, then let's heal because you are a hero
Yep.
and I need you to be a hero. So I so empathize with how hard it is for people. It's like saying, well, I'm a good person. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm not. It's sort of saying the same thing. So I understand the resistance to considering yourself to be a hero.
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And it's kind of a shame that our culture, our religion, our families, that we weren't raised to be heroes, to love ourselves, to all those things. And yeah, that is the greatest challenge within yourself to come to that point where you can accept yourself as a hero.
Love it. Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Now, I'm not going to do this for anybody, but Zach is my friend, so I can put him on this spot. Zach, you've been listening. What do you think of the presentation?
I think it's great. Yeah, it's got my wheels turning. Yeah, I like this idea of adding the freedom piece into there that you're freely choosing. I think that's a great addition. I guess maybe one question I had was, I'm not sure if this connects with this idea about heroes, but one thing I've been thinking about is, in terms of helping, and especially, I guess, more in terms of helping others. I'm thinking it seems that there is this, like in some cases, you can go maybe very deep with a few individuals, like in the case you're talking about your daughter, or sometimes you can help a lot more people, maybe superficially. I don't know this. I'm just thinking of like, I don't know, maybe you make a YouTube video or something, and it has a marginal effect on a couple 100,000 people that see it. I guess I'm curious your thoughts on, like, we do kind of have a finite amount of time and energy and resources, and yeah, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on like going for like trying to help a large amount of people versus trying to have a profound effect on a small number of people. And I guess for me, I've been growing my drum lessons business over the last couple of years, and that's been really just really personally significant for me. And like I'm seeing that like a lot of my students who are like high school age are really kind of looking up to me as, like role model, or I guess hero, and that's really powerful. But I only have like 15 students, so I'm kind of in a place where I'm thinking like, do I want to try to kind of reach out and cast a wider net? But also by doing that, I feel that my ability to help will be diminished, or maybe even become superficial if it's, to the point where I'm just creating something like an online course, or nothing against that kind of work. It definitely has its place, but yeah, just curious if you have any thoughts about that concept of depth versus breadth, I guess is the way to sum it up.
I love that you're bringing this up because I've thought about this a lot. Um, I've always struck when I heard about like famous singers and band members. They always have stories where they're like on some weird Vegas hotel and the curtain lifts and there's two people sitting there. But they sit there and they go, it was an opportunity for me to perform and really give the greatest performance ever. And I thought that's a great artist ethos. Like it's the joy I have of performing that probably translates and made them like they didn't like recoil and go, oh, there's only two people there. So I'm not, it probably was sort of responsible for their success because they had that. I don't care if it's 2 or 2 million people. I'm doing this for myself. And I think a lot of times in our culture, we're very about numbers. Like, if I'm only helping 3 people or 15 people, is this the best use of my time? Can I help thousands of, and we daydream, oh, maybe I can be the next Tony Robbins or, whatever. And so I think the challenge is don't worry about that right now. I think the challenge is aligning with your own psyche. Like your psyche will tell you. Like my psyche is like, I don't need, I've had jobs where I was in front of thousands of people for my own validation and it felt good. But that working through the evening of being so frustrated to see my daughter asleep has made my psyche so happy. I don't care if 1 million people know about that. I really am free of that. So I would just, and I know you're doing it already, just focus on that hero image of you and helping, and that's your guide. And whether it's in front of 5 people or 5 million people, the fact you're sort of being authentic to yourself is what will resonate. on any level that you do this.
David, may I make a comment?
Absolutely.
So Zach, I mean, this is a very, very, it's a great question. And I can talk from the kind of, from the experience of Indian artists. What I found is that artists who bring that authenticity and ability to produce some deep work which kind of transforms people. It takes a while to kind of actually build that and make that happen. But then over time, the power of that gets transmitted. That is a very powerful model, which is like an organic kind of a model. And yes, I mean, there are many things that can be done. But if you do that too early, where artists who try to kind of peak too early in the sense that, okay, I want to now impress people. So they basically sell out the kind of the authentic nature of their art in order to please people. Then what they might have a temporary success or two, but there isn't anything feeding that anymore because they have lost that connection with with the depth of them. So they kind of they can have success and then burn out. Most of the times they don't even have success. But um and part of it is that there are things that are under our control and things that are not under our control. So the thing is that it's like you need to take a path where you have you're doing the best on the things that you have control over. And then figuring out when it's scaling is important, but figuring it out in the context of that authenticity, of that intensity, of seeing, okay, how do you make that happen? I don't know whether this makes sense to you, Zach.
Yeah, I think it makes, I like the word you use, scaling, as well. Because I think of kind of like scaling a business as well. You can run into the same issue where it's like the moment that, you think of like all of the really great restaurants in New York that go kind of viral, the quality starts to go down because they have so many customers that in order to serve all the customers, like they have to drop the quality of the ingredients. There's less care that goes into making the food, etc. I guess it's weird because it seems like I definitely know people who are on the other side of it, where they're like reaching tons of people kind of from like the influencer side, but feel like they're not actually making a difference in anything they're doing because they're just like, they're, I don't know, maybe just creating like content that is just very like, consumable, and it doesn't really actually leave a lasting impression. So it's just weird because maybe it's just one of those like grass is greener on the other side. Because I definitely am feeling like I'm impacting the students that I have, but there's kind of in the back of my mind like, oh, but I only have 15 students. Like, what if I was able to have this impact on more people? So yeah, it could just be like the grass is kind of greener on the other side, or it could just be an inherent problem of scaling.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer.
I'd like to build on what you're saying. I'm getting very comfortable with the idea of tension. Like we think that we should have the answer to everything, to give us psychological order. There's nothing wrong with the tension in the inner debate of what you're saying. Like, I'm helping 15 people. If I help more, will I lose the authenticity? But if I don't help more, I won't feel. Just be comfortable with that. That's fine. Have that debate. You don't need the answer, or the answer will find itself. That sounds very Yoda, but don't spend the energy. Just sort of go with the flow. You want to question it, fine. Maybe I want more. fine, because we're taught like, oh, if I don't have that answer, again, it's the uncertainty. So you're just bobbing along, but all the while you're being authentic and true to yourself. You know, when I a job long ago, I did a lot of public speaking. I would speak to 5 people. I would speak to 5,000 people. Then I'd speak to 500 people. Then I would speak to 5 people. And I would adjust to whatever audience. But actually, my main thing was I want to have fun doing this. You know, so I want to have fun doing this. I want to be authentic. I want to share this part of myself. So focus on being true to yourself, which is very hard for people, but it's okay to have the debate. It's okay to be uncertain.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is B, followed by Sanjay. B, go ahead.
Yes, as I listen to the comments, I have a question in regard to, somebody mentioned, that helping has to be ethical, and also Zachary just mentioned like helping the few versus helping the many. And does it have to does it have to have a positive outcome? Because sometimes, like in light of recent events, for example, there are people like, for example, Elon Musk that says that wants to help the economy by cutting Medicare, Social Security, um, cutting all the social services or the social safety net. And in doing that, that's going to help, the debt, and that's going to help the deficit. And they also want to pass a tax cuts for the richest top 1% of Americans and corporations. And they want to put tariffs on the rest of us. So if they help the 1% at the expense of everybody else, is that a positive outcome? Is that a good way to help? Because even in literature, there are people like, you mentioned the Lord of the Rings, like Sauron, that wanted to help Middle Earth, right, by bringing on this authoritarian structure. So, in order to be a hero, do you have to help, freely choose to help? It has to be ethical. And does it have to have a positive outcome? Because there are people that want to help that create chaos and or they only help a very small fraction of people at the expense of the many.
I love that you're bringing this up. I love this because it really resonates with me that I've worked hard to not judge on one level what I mean by helping. Like the basic is imagine everyone in a culture making a hero's commitment to be a hero who's using their freedom to help. So that just unifies us. Like, okay, we're all in this together. We're all trying to help. Like we don't have that now. It's just sort of a free for all. So imagine everyone making that commitment. The challenge is to what you're saying. Then there's tremendous discussion and debate about what we mean by helping, because what someone defines as helping, someone might think is hurting, and vice versa. But I think it's very important that if we see each other as heroes who are trying to help, we have a tendency to really demonize people that we don't agree with. And that's what's killing us as a culture. We need to start with, hey, we're all in this together. We're all trying to help. That has a tremendous unifying energy. That's what I'm really interested in. And then the next level is, what is helping? Is that not helping? That is helping. I don't agree with you. That didn't help me at all. You know, someone might kill someone and go, well, I was helping my family, or whatever. So you're absolutely right that there can be tremendous disagreement and debate about what is helping. But an important step is for us to just believe that we all are trying to help. Because right now, I don't think people feel that way. They just think like one side's bad. You look, you're deplorable, you're evil. Look at our rhetoric. And it's too extreme. Those people go, I'm trying to help my family. I'm trying to help my family, but you don't think I'm helping. I'm trying to help my government. I don't want my government to go bankrupt. I'm trying to help. Well, the way you're doing it is not helping. I know, but at least I'm trying. You know what I'm saying? There's tremendous debate about what is helping, but let's start from we all are trying to help. I think that would be a positive step.
Thank you. Next up is Sanjay.
B, Shrikant, David, I love this discussion. And the last 2 points you brought up, David, remind me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the importance of.
I think we lost
Sorry,
sound.
you went on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Apologize, it was on mute. Okay. Thank you, B. Thank you, Shrikant, David. I was just simply saying that Maslow's hierarchy of needs was something that jumped out at me in terms of this alignment as individuals go on the hero's journey in whatever form, having the needs ordered in a particular way that helps them to embark on that journey. And they might not have everything in alignment as they initially get started, but knowing that that's something that could be helpful could be key. And then number two, the idea of the platinum rule and gold kind of reminds me of what you were saying, David, there in terms of how when you were building on B's point and Shrikant, you were also adding, there is this idea that when people are well-intentioned and they want to help, do unto others as they want to be done unto. Not everyone wants to be done unto in the same way. We don't, right? And so that's the golden rule. And then the idea of the platinum rule, Dr. Tony Alessandra and a lot of other people emphasize the platinum rule, do unto others as they want to be done unto. So sometimes heroes customize the treatment based on the empathy or the awareness they have of the situation, their surroundings, the people they're serving. And so it is something to think about. But it's absolutely fascinating, this dialogue. I just wanted to weigh in. Thanks.
I mean, imagine right now all the debates we're having in our country around the world. And imagine if all of us went into them thinking we've all made a hero's commitment to use our freedom to help. That would have such an energizing effect. We don't think of each other like that right now. We think like this half is wrong, these people are evil, and it's not true. It's not reality. And that's why I was saying, if you stop for a moment where you were judging everyone, we judge everyone on, oh, you're on the phone talking nonsense, or you don't even care, or, this person on the TV. Take a step back and look at what they're really doing. They're trying to help in their own way. You might not agree, it might be stupid, but their intention is they're trying to help. That has a very uplifting feeling. And so take that step. They're trying to be heroic, they're trying to help. I don't agree with it, but at least, they're not pure evil. I think that that's what we have to do as a culture right now is all make this commitment. Tremendous things will happen. We'll feel better about each other. But yes, we're going to debate and argue about what helping means, but fine. We're all going for the same goal. We're all trying to help.
Wonderful. David, Katie typed something in the chat. Shrikant.
Yes, Katie, would you like to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, that was the responding to Zachary's comment about wanting to either expand out the number of people or the pressure you put on yourself, like I'm not doing enough for each individual person. I think teachers feel that pressure a lot, that they can always be doing more to help their students.
Thank you, Katie. All right, anybody else has any questions, any comments? David, do you have a new prompt? Anything else that you want to ask everybody?
I mean, as usual, the discussion is wonderful. I feel a lot of validation about adding the element of freedom. I think a lot of people understand why I'm playing with that concept. I also want to say that even though I'm getting validation from this group, I feel even if I didn't get validation from the group, I would feel really good about it. And that goes again to that ego image of just like, I'm trying to help. And there's something very freeing of presenting something and what the response is secondary. It's almost irrelevant. I mean, I love the conversation. And I'm just bringing that up as an example of when you feel in alignment, it's very liberating. I'm not saying, oh, I'm someone special where I don't need validation. Of course I do. But it's just the idea of, and why I love Jung was fascinating. Your psyche, my psyche is saying, you're helping making this presentation. I'm very aligned with that energy. And so, but that took a long time to get to that point. So this is going in the right direction. And when I hear people's comments, it's like it's a room full of heroes. It's great. I've spent way too much time looking at the news and the propaganda, and every time I come to these groups, it's aligning with this is real people. And so I'm just grateful for that opportunity. And I just want to, just finish with asking the group, you don't have to answer, are you willing to take on the challenge for a week of making this hero's commitment? I am a hero who's using my freedom. Just try it. See what it does. We'll come back and do another talk later. What parts do you like? What is the hero part? Yeah, I just couldn't see myself as a hero. Or yeah, I'm a hero. Is the idea of free choice. That helps me. I have agency. I'm making decisions. I'm free. Does that help? And just by consciously helping, does that make you want to help more? So if anyone needs a little help tweaking any last, second resistance to that, happy to do that. But I just think I'm in a room full of heroes right now. And so let's do our thing. And I just feel tremendous gratitude right now.
Wonderful. So I'm going to ask everybody one last question. Mike, you have something. Go ahead, Mike.
I tend to look at as I want to be a hero. I want to try and be a problem solver. And we've talked about several problems, but we've not tried to develop a technique to add. Well, we have one guy who comes to these things occasionally. I think you've met him, who says, "Oh, whenever I want to solve a problem, I have to ask why. Why is this a problem? Why are we approaching it this way?" And I'm not sure I want to be a hero. I want to be a bit player in the background, but I'd like to be a catalyst to make the problem go away, or make the problem at least better. I don't know if I'm defining anything that's in your domain, but that's
No,
that's
I
what I get
mean,
out of your comments so far.
well, I think my intention with the presentation is to sort of put together some concepts that I think are very important. Like the idea of being a hero. Uh, there is a hero archetype. There is a reality to that. And so I just bring that up and say there's an energy behind it. There's a psychological history. Study Jung. Um, if someone just says, I don't need that, I just want to solve problems, I want to be helpful, I'm totally cool with that. My job is just to say there's something of interest with the energy around this term. Use it for what you want. Not a lot of people know that. It's fascinating to me. This idea of freedom, it's so important in our culture. We talk about freedom all the time. But I think it's more than just obtaining and having freedom. We should ask ourselves how we use our freedom. I think going forward, as a culture, we have to start asking ourselves how we're using our freedom. Just to stand there with our arms crossed going, I'm entitled to freedom. Well, look what's happening. We're ripping the place apart. That's just reality. So we have to have a discussion. How are we using our freedom? And then the final part is helping. Like if we don't help each other, we won't survive. We won't make a living. So it's just it's making it more conscious, these concepts. But you're free to choose what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, David. May I ask one last question to the audience? So, folks, just very briefly, 30 seconds, 1 minute. What are you walking away with? What did you learn today? Would you like to, if you'd like to answer, you're welcome to do that. No need to answer, but if you want to answer that, would love to do that. Start with Evanik.
I'm walking away with I can create how I am a hero. And just quickly, what I mean by that is I can decide what type of hero I want to be. It doesn't have to be by anybody else's standards.
Thank you.
Love that.
Anybody else? All right. So David, thank you so much. As always, I love the presentation and I love the conversations that happen afterwards. And thanks to the amazing folks that show up. It's such a rich conversation, such rich back and forth. So always very thought provoking. And thank you for making it happen. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And I will be giving the talk again. I like to just sit with the comments and the energy. And it's just one of my favorite things to do. So I just want to wish all my fellow heroes take on the challenge, and we will exchange notes on the journey farther up on the pathway. So thank you very much.